Okay, so ice baths. Right. Cold water immersion, it seems like it's absolutely everywhere these days. Athletes, wellness gurus, everyone's talking about it.
They really are. It's gained huge popularity.
But is it, just a trend? Or is there real substance there? That's what we're diving into today. We want to look at the science, the actual benefits, how it works, and really importantly, the safety side of things.
Absolutely. The safety is key.
Our mission here is basically to cut through the noise and get you well informed on this fast.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is that this isn't some new fad. Not at all.
Right. You're saying it has ancient roots.
Exactly. We're talking ancient Greeks, Romans, Egyptians. They used cold exposure deliberately. They talked about it for purification, for mental clarity.
Huh. Purification and mental clarity. That actually sounds surprisingly modern, doesn't it?
It really does. It lines up quite well with what we're finding now about, say, flushing metabolic waste or boosting cognitive function.
So it's like ancient wisdom hinting at the science.
Kind of, yeah. It points towards this biological principle called hormesis.
Hormesis. Right. That's the idea that a little bit of stress, like cold, can actually trigger beneficial adaptations, make you stronger.
Precisely. A controlled stressor that challenges the body just enough to provoke a positive response, rather than causing harm.
Okay, so that historical context is really interesting. Let's get into the mechanics then. What actually happens in your body when you take that icy plunge?
Well, it's a pretty dramatic and immediate response. First off, the blood vessels near your skin, in your arms and legs, they clamp down hard. That's vasoconstriction.
Right. Pushing blood toward your core organs.
Exactly. Helps protect core temperature, but also, importantly, it can really help reduce acute swelling and inflammation in the limbs or muscles.
Okay, that makes sense for recovery.
Then, when you get out and start rewarming, those vessels open back up vasodilation. This brings a rush of fresh, oxygen-rich blood back to the tissues, helping to clear out metabolic byproducts, like lactic acid, potentially.
So it's sort of flush cycle.
A very effective one. And beyond that, there's another layer. CWI strongly activates something called brown adipose tissue, or BAT.
Brown fat, not the regular white fat, right? This is the stuff that actually burns energy.
That's the one. BAT's job is to generate heat by burning calories. So activating it can give your metabolism a bit of a boost. Plus, research suggests it improves how your body handles glucose and lipids.
Wow. Okay, so a real metabolic effect there. But I keep hearing about the mental side, too. It's not just physical recovery, is it?
Oh, definitely not. The neurological and psychological effects are profound. Cold exposure is a known stimulator of the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is key for the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest system.
That's right. Stimulating it helps counterbalance the stress response. It can lower heart rate variability long-term and generally improve mood and reduce anxiety.
Interesting. And chemically, what's happening in the brain?
This is where it gets really quite dramatic. That cold shock triggers a massive release of certain neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, for instance.
That's the alertness one, right?
Yeah.
Focus.
Yes, and levels can surge by, get this, up to 530%.
530%. Seriously?
Seriously. And dopamine, the motivation and reward chemical, that can increase by up to 250%.
Okay, no wonder people report feeling so incredibly switched on and, well, good afterwards.
Oh,
That's a huge neurochemical shift.
it really is. It's like a natural performance enhancer for your brain in some ways.
So, putting this all together, faster recovery, potential metabolic benefits, this massive mental boost, what are the main sort of applications people are using CWI for?
Well, the big ones are reducing muscle soreness after intense exercise, speeding up recovery between training sessions or competitions, enhancing mental resilience and focus. And some people find benefits for sleep and maybe even immune function, though the evidence there is still developing.
Right. But you mentioned a really important nuance earlier, especially for athletes. It's not always beneficial, is it? Depending on the goal.
Exactly. This is critical. For acute recovery, say after a marathon or a tournament, CWI seems great. But, and this is a big but for strength athletes.
Using ice baths regularly right after strength training workouts can actually blunt the signals for muscle growth. It can interfere with hypertrophy and long-term strength gains.
So it dampens the inflammation and signaling needed to actually build the muscle.
Precisely. So the timing and frequency really, really matter. You have to match it to your specific training goals, recovery versus adaptation.
That's such a vital distinction. You don't want to accidentally sabotage your gains. Okay, let's switch gears to the flip side. Safety. Because plunging into ice water isn't, risk-free.
Absolutely not. And the risks are mostly conditional, meaning they depend heavily on your individual health status.
So who needs to be particularly careful?
Anyone with cardiovascular issues? Definitely. Uncontrolled high blood pressure, known heart rhythm problems, things like that.
Why is that, the vasoconstriction?
That's part of it. But there's also something called the autonomic conflict. When you first hit the cold water, you get that involuntary gasp reflex you want to inhale sharply.
Right, the cold shock response. But at the same time, immersing your face triggers the dive reflex, which wants to slow your heart rate and make you hold your breath. These two powerful opposing signals hitting the nervous system simultaneously
Can put a dangerous strain on the heart.
It can, especially if there is an underlying vulnerability. Also, people with respiratory conditions like severe asthma or neurological conditions like epilepsy need to be extremely cautious or avoid it.
So the bottom line is, talk to your doctor. Seriously.
100%. It's non-negotiable before you even consider trying CWI, especially if you have any pre-existing health conditions or you're on any medications, blood thinners. Even some antidepressants could interact. You must get medical clearance.
And even then, start slow, listen to your body, never do it alone, have a safe way to get out and rewarm, all that common sense stuff.
All crucial. And there's one more contraindication that sounds almost counterintuitive.
Ooh, what's that?
Simply not wanting to do it.
Not wanting to. How is that a contraindication?
Because forcing yourself into a significant stressor like cold exposure when you genuinely dread it, when there's no internal willingness or positive mindset towards it, well, that can actually negate the potential hormetic benefits.
So the mental state going in actually matters for the physiological outcome.
It seems so. The stress could become purely negative psychologically and potentially physiologically rather than adaptive. It highlights this incredibly tight link between mind and body. Your subjective experience, your willingness, it's just as important as the cold water itself.
Wow. So the desire, or at least the acceptance, is part of the process. That really makes you think, doesn't it? How much of our well-being really is this partnership between what's happening physically and where our head is at? Something to ponder.